Hi everyone, my name is Robert and I will be demonstrating my Phase 1 project for the winter 2015 ADO.NET development class I am taking at Renton Technical College. So let's go ahead and get started. Um, Here are the requirements for the assignment, and I will be demonstrating each part of it, of the rubric, and highlighting the more important areas to note uh, while demonstrating it in my project and how I implemented it. So let's go ahead and go to Visual Studio, and I'm using Visual Studio 2013 and SQL Server 2012 as the SQL Server database for the backend. So here in my solution, I have two projects, main forms and VI base form. The base form here is a class library that I created, while this is my startup application here. So in my base form, this is what we're going to use a technique called visual inheritance, where I created a base form here. This is the look and feel that I decided to go with, and when I create forms from the main forms project, I would be inheriting all this for each form that I create, and that way it keeps the look and feel the same throughout all the pages, and I don't have to go back and recreate everything. So here I have a picture box, another picture box, a label, and two more picture boxes here. I've decided to go with the borderless window, so I had to recreate these, and also because I went borderless, I didn't have the ability to click the screen to drag it, so I'm using this image and I code it in the backend on click, mouse click events that will enable me to move my window screen around. Let's go ahead, let's take a look at what that. So here, as you can see, I'm exposing three properties that I'm giving the user when they create forms in the main forms project. They can access these properties and change them. I'm letting them change in the picture box there, the label, and the label button here, and that's demonstrated right here. And all on this base form, it will get inherited all the rest of the code here as well. So let's see. Oops, we don't need to save changes. So let's go ahead and start this up. And what I'm going to do is actually run it outside of Visual Studio to show that the application runs correctly. Here I have a splash screen that I created that runs on another thread and waits until the application starts. So let me show you real quick. So, for example, when I created my forms, you can see that here is where I would set those properties, and I'm able to set it from my base form. The picture box up here, the label, that's right there, and the button label here. I'm using a C# at token here, and what that does is it escapes this literal string, so I don't have to put the backslashes in here. So that's a cool thing. So let's go ahead and go to our project. So that's what it looks like on the main menu. I have some buttons here, but some buttons are in construction. I'm not going to use it for this, but primarily just the view images by gallery, gallery definition, image inventory, and add a gallery. So let's go into view images by gallery, and here what I'm demonstrating is loading this combo box on form load with the execute reader method of SQL command and loading up the data, and that is shown right here. So we open up connection to the database, set some properties, set the command type here. Command type equals text here, and we're going to pass it this query string to the database to execute. Here we're using the execute reader, and what this does is goes and grabs information from the database and is able to return multiple rows and stores it in this data reader that we will be returning to the calling method there. Here we're using command behavior dot close connection, and which is a parameter of the execute reader method. And if we use this method, we do not need to close the database connection explicitly, because once we close the data reader object, then it automatically closes the database connection as well, which in turn releases the memory taken up by the SQL connection. And how is that different from here, instead of doing it in the filing, is when we're done with this, it closes these objects right away, so we don't need them no more. Versus if we try to close it here, it closes it, but actually it depends when the garbage collector decides to come around and closes it. So that's why we want to close it right away, because we might want to rerun this again and we would get SQL errors because of that. Let's see. So that's that. So that loads up. This makes it dynamic on this combo box versus trying to set the property items collection, setting it statically. We're doing it pulling straight from the database. So anytime it changes, this will know of the changes, and we don't have to go and recreate and make updates to this application exe file. On the onClick event, I am returning more data. I'm doing another SQL data reader again here. So same thing, except this time I'm calling a store procedure. The command text now will interpret this as a store procedure name. I am passing a parameter to that, and the parameter will be the value that I selected here, or actually the value that's selected here, and it goes back to the database, queries it and returns, and I'm outputting the data here. Let's see. So on this, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. When I do an on select event on the combo box, that's when it will kick off this method here, and it goes and grabs the data with the stored procedure and inputting the gallery type right here, and returning the data back into this execute reader for me. And I'm using that to loop to the execute reader to display all the information here. And what I'm doing is populating using the list view, and I'm adding rows in here, but it's hidden here, but I'm just only showing one column. So when I click on this event here, it will show, but actually read data from the list view, not the database. And we can see it gets populated. And we get information. This will be a description property, and this is a path to the image, so it's like a file path to where the image lives. Okay, let's move on. Gallery definition. Here, same thing. I'm using that SQL data execute reader again just to load this up, but this time it's going to be a little different, where we are using a store procedure and we're going to be using input-output parameters. Here, when I select into this combo box, I'm going to trigger the selected index event, which will kick off the store procedure. This will be the input in my store procedure. Here are the input that this store procedure I'm passing to the store procedure. Here are the outputs that it's going to return to me in the parameters, and I'm using, this is how you signify an output parameter there. And for this, we are doing it differently. because we don't need multiple rows to be returned. We're showing that we can return it in output parameters of the stored procedure. We can use this execute non-query, and then when we want to access those output parameters, we can access them like this. And I set some exposed properties in here as well. So these output, this text here is the output parameter of my stored procedure that was returned, and the link to this image file was an output parameter. The description, folder name, and the file name that would point to the path for this image. Okay, and image inventory here. What I have here, let's see, what did I do here? Okay, so here, same thing, form loads all the data for me. And this time when I select it, I'm going to select this button, and it will run a it's going to run an aggregate query string here that's going to return data, a scalar value for me. So that's why I'm going to use this one here, and it's good for when I want to return only one row, and I'm not returning multiple rows. That's why we use that. So here I'm just getting the count of image files in galaxies, and it does an aggregate query on the SQL database and returns the result. The result that's returning is this int value here, because that's the return value right there that I'm returning. And that's how I'm demonstrating that. Oops, where am I going? Okay, add a gallery. Here I am going to demonstrate inserting information into the database. So what I have here is the form where the user would fill out and then click this add button gallery, and it would add it to here. We'll click the button without any data to show that I have some validation that requires the user to put some data in here. Some gallery, some description, folder name, and image file name. And currently we don't have anything, so we click this in here. Gallery has been added, and so you see it got added here, and when once it was added, it went ahead and reset my form for me. So here's the method that did that. I call the insert row into table gallery, but because I'm inserting, I'm not returning any data. I'm going to use a void method, so I'm not returning any data. Here, the command type is stored procedure. It's going to call the stored procedure, and it's going to pass in the data that I grabbed from the UI here. And since I'm not returning data, that's where this execute non-query comes in handy again. Executing it and not returning anything. Good for inserts, dates, and updates, and stuff like that. Let's go here to show you. Brought them executing here, so let's just take a look at what that looks like. So back in the middle tier where we call the store procedure, here's the procedure name, and I'm just showing you, demonstrating what it looks like. So it goes out and calls a store procedure. It's taking these input parameters as input parameters, and it's going to plug it into the values here, and that's what the insert does. This insert will insert that data into the database, as you saw. It added these rows here, or these columns here. Okay, I think that's it. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation. Any questions, leave a comment. Until next time for phase 2. See you then.